Welcome to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. Today we are taking a deep, transformative dive into the work of Dan Martell, specifically his definitive guide for scaling entrepreneurs. Buy back your time. 15 success principles to reclaim your life and build an empire. And our mission in this deep dive is it's far more than just summarizing a book. We want to provide you, the founder, the manager, or the simply overburdened individual, with the principles that allow you to fundamentally change your relationship with work. We're going to build a blueprint for moving from being enslaved by your growing business, the very one you built, to becoming its strategic, intentional, and hopefully joyful owner.
And that distinction you just made between slave and owner,
Yeah.
that's really the central tension of Martell's work, isn't it? The core message is this necessary and often really painful paradigm shift. We've all been fed this outdated kind of heroic narrative that success requires just sheer willpower, right? Discipline, grinding for 80 hours a week. Martell just proves that belief is not only false, but it's actually destructive to scale.
Right. It's the very thing holding you back.
Exactly. And his own story is the perfect example. I mean, here's a guy who went from someone who struggled significantly with focus and ADHD to becoming a 9-figure CEO. And he didn't do it by trying to out-willpower his challenges. He did it by systemizing himself out of them. So this whole deep dive is about leveraging systems, strategic retreat, and, focusing on freedom rather than just brute force.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start at the root of the problem, what Martell calls Principle 1, understanding the pain line. This is that moment, that almost existential crisis, where the founder looks at their booming success and just realizes it feels exactly like a slow-motion nightmare.
It's such a universal experience for high-growth businesses. It really is. Martell pinpoints this inflection point, the pain line, and it typically hits when a company gets to about 12 employees. Or when it crosses the $1 million mark in annual recurring revenue.
So there's a very specific threshold.
A very specific one. Because before that line, the founder can physically handle all the complexity. The sales, the customer service, the admin burdens. You can do it just through sheer effort. But once you cross that threshold, the weight of managing people, cash flow, culture, operations, and continued expansion becomes genuinely physically painful for the founder.
All the systems that got you there just collapse.
They completely collapse.
Yeah.
What worked for a 2-person team is a disaster for a team of 15.
And the response to that crushing pressure is usually fear-driven and often self-destructive, which Martell groups into what he calls the 3 S's. These are let's say, the non-successful, common psychological responses to hitting that pain line.
Exactly. The first S is sell. The pain of management, the complexity, the responsibility, it's become so intense that the entrepreneur decides the only way out is to exit the business.
They just sell it off.
They sell it off. Or even close it down and go back to a traditional job. They solve the immediate pain, sure, but they sacrifice the opportunity to build that meaningful, self-sustaining enterprise they actually set out to create.
Okay, but the second one, sabotage, is the one that really gets me because it's so often unconscious. I feel like I see this happening all the time. How does Martell define this behavior and, how do we distinguish it from just making a bad business decision?
That's where the psychological diagnosis becomes so critical. Sabotage isn't just a mistake. It's an unconscious mechanism to alleviate pressure. The founder, they'll start taking on poor-fit, low-margin projects, or they'll make obviously bad hires, or launch a doomed product line that deep down they secretly know is going to fail.
But why? What's the payoff there?
The payoff is relief, because failure gives them psychological permission to stop. It removes that intense, unbearable pressure they feel to maintain this unsustainable growth. They get to step off the treadmill without ever admitting they couldn't handle the pace. It's a self-inflicted wound that, weirdly, feels like a relief.
It's a way of saying the market stopped me instead of I couldn't figure out how to delegate.
Precisely. And that leads right into the third S, stalling. This is just the avoidance mechanism. This is deliberately avoiding those critical, difficult decisions, like hiring the next level of management or cutting an unprofitable client. They actively limit growth.
Because they think no growth means no failure.
Right. They operate under this deeply flawed belief that if they just keep the business small and safe and entirely dependent on them, they can't fail.
So none of those paths lead to freedom. They all lead to a dead end. Martell's proven alternative to this whole misery is what he calls the buyback loop. It's a structured, 3-step process designed to proactively transform how entrepreneurs relate to their time and their energy.
And it really is the engine that drives the entire book. Step 1 is simply to audit your calendar and your tasks. This requires just brutal honesty about where your time is actually going. We'll get into the details of how to do this later, but that raw data is the absolute starting point.
And step 2 is to transfer.
Yes, transfer those draining tasks. And this is the kind of the counterintuitive nugget that Martell constantly emphasizes. What drains you, like detailed administrative work or systematic customer service processes, can genuinely energize someone else.
Someone who's actually wired for that kind of detail.
Exactly, someone who loves systems. You are transferring work to people who are not only better suited for it, but they enjoy it more. And then, step 3, you have to fill that newly reclaimed time. You must proactively program activities that generate high energy, high income, and deep fulfillment.
Because if you don't fill the space, chaos just rushes right back in to occupy it.
It always does.
That focus on energy generation brings us directly to principle 2, which is the DRIP matrix. This is where we learn the fundamental lesson that not all hours are created equal. I love Martell's analogy about time here. He says the minutes crawled in math class because the subject just drained his energy, but the hours flew by in art class because it energized him. That same emotional value applies to every single business task.
That analogy is so crucial because it helps us abandon that purely quantitative view of time. I spent 8 hours on it, and adopt a qualitative view. The real question is, how much energy did that 8 hours cost me, and what was the actual return?
So the DRIP matrix sets up the framework for that.
It does. It establishes the 2 necessary axes for categorization. Energy generated, does the work energize you or drain you?
Yeah.
And then income generated, is the work high value or low value?
Let's break down the 4 quadrants because the strategy for each one is completely different. Quadrant 1, the delegate quadrant, is the immediate priority for elimination.
Absolutely. These are draining tasks that produce minimal or low income. For a high-level founder, these tasks are pure value destruction. And Martell is categorical about this. These must be deleted, deferred, or delegated immediately.
Like what, specifically? Expense reports?
Expense reports, email triage that doesn't lead to a direct sale, low-value administrative follow-up. These tasks are the first targets for outsourcing because they offer such a high return on your energy.
Okay, then quadrant 2 is replace. This suggests the task is crucial, but you're not the right person for it in the long term.
Precisely. These are critical functions that might drain your energy, but they generate high income or result in, critical outcomes for the business.
Yeah.
You can't just stop doing them.
But they're eating up your strategic focus.
Exactly. So the strategy here isn't simple delegation to an assistant. It's about identifying and hiring a key person who will fully own that high-value function. This is where we start building out the replacement ladder, which is about structured leverage, not just a task handoff.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Maybe developing a complex, draining financial model. High income, it's critical to the business, but it's probably better done by a specialized CFO or a fractional CFO.
Right. Then you have the invest quadrant. This one is tough for a lot of hyper-productive founders to justify because it often feels, unproductive in the short term. It energizes them, but the immediate income is low.
This is where the truly strategic entrepreneurs separate themselves from the operators. Invest time is spent on building long-term capabilities. We're talking high-leverage activities like skill building, reading foundational books, cultivating key relationships that might not pay off for years, or just deep, focused mindset work.
It looks like you're not working.
It looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
An afternoon hike, an hour of reading. But Martell argues this time actually generates tremendous long-term value because it increases your capability to lead, to innovate, and to grow the entire organization exponentially. You're investing in the CEO, not the line worker.
And finally, the destination, produce, high energy, high income.
This is it. This is the highest and best use of your unique time. The tasks where you create maximum value using your core expertise, your genius zone. For one founder, that might be high-level strategic sales conversations. For another, it's designing intellectual property or refining that 10x vision. The systematic goal of this whole thing is to move as many tasks as possible out of the other 3 quadrants and into this produce quadrant. You want to make strategic focus your default priority.
So your unique energy is only spent on the tasks that only you can do.
That's the end game.
It's impossible to achieve that kind of strategic focus if you haven't assigned a rational economic value to your time. I mean, if you don't calculate your worth, you'll always default to emotional decision-making. Choosing to save $100 on a cleaner, even if it costs you 4 hours of focused work. This brings us perfectly into principle 3, the buyback rate formula.
This is really the foundation of rational delegation. You have to know what your time's true worth is before you can make any sound financial decision about outsourcing. And the formula is direct. You take your annual business income, divide it by 2,000, which is roughly the number of full-time working hours in a year, and then you multiply that resulting number by 4.
Okay, let's stop right there on that multiplier. Why the times 4? If my time is worth, say, $100 an hour based on my income, why do I need to calculate a buyback rate of $400 an hour? That's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck.
That's the crucial missing piece of context that so often gets overlooked. Martell insists on that 4x multiplier because delegation isn't free, right?
Yeah.
That multiplier represents the necessary capital buffer, the overhead, the management time, and the profit margin required for that outsourcing relationship to be genuinely profitable and sustainable for your business.
So if I hire someone at my rate, I'm not actually making money.
You're not. If you hire someone at $100 an hour to do a $100 an hour task, you haven't made any profit, and you still have all the management overhead. The 4X rule ensures that if you pay someone, say, $400 an hour or less, you are making a rational financial investment because your time, when it's freed up, should generate far more than that rate.
So let's use the example from the book. A business generating $200,000 in annual income. Divided by 2,000 hours, that's $100 an hour. Multiply by 4, your buyback rate is $400 per hour.
Exactly. The practical application is that if you can find someone to handle a task for $400 or less per hour, and that could be a fractional hire, a VA, a specialized consultant, it is a sound financial investment that creates wealth. It doesn't cost you wealth.
But let me inject a little friction here. What about the early stage entrepreneur who's maybe making $50,000 a year? Their buyback rate is only $100 an hour. They are definitely spending time on $10 an hour tasks, but they physically don't have the $400 a week to hire someone. Is this formula emotionally realistic for them?
That's a valid and an extremely common pushback. Martell addresses this by saying the formula is less about your immediate spending capacity and more about your strategic mindset. If you're only earning $50,000, the formula tells you that every single moment you spend on a $10 task is actively destroying value. It forces you to prioritize eliminating those low-dollar tasks before you even hit the pain line.
So it's a guide for your focus, not just your wallet.
It's a North Star. For that resource-constrained founder, the advice is clear. First, eliminate the time assassins, which is free. And second, aggressively delegate the absolute lowest dollar, highest drain tasks using the lowest cost solutions you can find. Maybe a $10 an hour virtual assistant for very specific things, just until your income grows enough to afford rung 1 of the replacement ladder.
Because if I, as the $400 an hour entrepreneur, am spending my time on a $10 an hour task, I am not saving money. I am destroying $390 of potential wealth every single hour.
And Martell's quote here is so powerful. If you don't value your own time, nobody else will. The formula just forces strategic thinking over that emotional attachment to money or the habit of just doing it yourself.
That's wealth destruction by flawed valuation. And speaking of self-infliction, Principle 4 details the 5-time assassins. These are the deeply ingrained internal behavioral patterns that sabotage success, even if your external systems are perfect. Eliminating these is the cheapest form of buyback available. It costs nothing.
And this section is just essential for self-awareness. The first is the staller, the entrepreneur who just cannot make a decision. They mark emails unread for a week. They delay critical hiring choices. They postpone signing necessary contracts. They operate in a perpetual state of delay.
And we mentioned earlier that the cost of stalling compounds exponentially. Can you give us a specific, high-stakes example of that cost?
Oh, absolutely. Think about hiring. If you wait 1 month, just 1 month, to make a hiring decision on a key sales role because you're stalling, that decision doesn't just cost you the time you wasted. It costs you the 3 to 6 months of revenue that person would have generated if they had been hired on time. That single delayed decision can cost tens of thousands in lost momentum and missed opportunities. Stalling is the silent killer of organizational momentum.
Okay, so the second one is the speed demon. They're trying to avoid stalling, but they swing too far in the opposite, equally destructive direction.
The speed demon confuses manic busyness with true productivity. They make hasty decisions without adequate reflection or planning or process. And Martell illustrates this perfectly with the example of recruitment. Instead of running a proper, structured recruitment process, the speed demon hires the first available candidate simply because they want the position filled now.
Saving time up front.
They think they are. They save 2 weeks up front, but then they end up spending 6 months dealing with the damage, the remediation, the cultural conflict, and, the eventual firing required due to a poor fit or a lack of skill. Reckless speed creates massive drag later on.
The third is maybe the most common cause of delegation failure: the supervisor, the micromanager.
Every leader recognizes this one, or sees it in themselves. They scrutinize every detail, they criticize minor elements, and they feel compelled to maintain constant involvement in every single step of execution. And the core damage here isn't just the wasted time, it's the prevention of team autonomy. If the founder is editing the font on a marketing report, they're signaling that they don't trust the team's judgment.
So delegation becomes impossible.
It does, because the founder remains the intellectual and emotional bottleneck of the entire business.
And the fourth, the saver, the penny pincher, is often seen as a virtue in the bootstrap world, isn't it?
It is, but it's a dangerous one. This is the entrepreneur who views every dollar spent on necessary tools or efficient software or key personnel as a loss rather than an essential investment. They'll refuse to spend $50 a month on a project management tool that would save 50 hours of confusion simply because they view frugality as success.
And the irony is,
The brutal irony is that this very frugality prevents the necessary investment required for structural growth. It ensures the business remains small and entirely dependent on the founder's capacity. They pinch pennies while they're hemorrhaging potential millions in growth.
and finally, the most difficult and I think the most insidious assassin to face: the self-medicator.
This is the escape artist. As growth introduces complexity and discomfort, the difficult conversation, the massive strategic decision, the financial pressure, the self-medicator uses various addictions to just check out. This could be hours wasted on social media, excessive food or alcohol, or even excessive aimless work that feels busy but accomplishes nothing.
And they just hit a ceiling.
They hit a critical ceiling because they lack the emotional resilience required to lead a larger, more complex organization. They choose comfort and escape over that necessary psychological stretch. And look, eliminating these 5 assassins is really step 1 in the buyback loop. This kind of strategic focus is so critical, and it's a big part of the comprehensive 1-hour guide by Anil Nathu to quickly isolate these high-leverage actions.
Moving from those destructive, low-leverage patterns to constructive ones requires a dramatic shift in identity. It's about how you view your role in the economy. Principle 5 outlines the 3 levels of trading, which acts as a powerful map for scaling your personal and organizational worth.
And your current level of operation fundamentally determines your ceiling for both income and freedom. Level 1 is the simplest. You're trading your time for money. This is the classic employee or service provider model. Your income is mathematically capped by the number of hours you can physically work and your hourly rate. Most entrepreneurs start right here, believing that hustle and hard work will eventually solve their problems.
But then level 2 is the entrepreneurial breakthrough, the moment they realize they can leverage other people and systems.
Right. This is where you start trading money for time. You hire people, you invest in infrastructure, and you charge clients for results and outcomes rather than hours worked. You've introduced leverage.
But most people stop there.
That's the trap. This is where most successful entrepreneurs stop. They achieve significant income. $1 million, $5 million, even $10 million. But Martell notes they remain trapped working in the business. They have a highly lucrative job, but they still own their business rather than the business operating for them. It's a better cage, but it's still a cage.
And level 3, the key to true empire building and freedom, is where the vast majority fail to make that leap.
Level 3 is trading money for money. At this level, your capital works for you, independent of your hour-to-hour intervention. This involves strategic passive investments, developing recurring revenue assets that run on mature, optimized systems, and creating intellectual property that generates income without your daily operational input.
That's true freedom.
That is the definition of true wealth and freedom. But it requires a profound mental shift beyond that level 2 operator mindset. The founder has to see themselves as the visionary asset allocator, not the chief problem solver.
To make that leap to level 3, though, you first have to destroy the self-deception about where your time is actually going. This is Principle 6, the time and energy audit. You really can't delegate what you haven't measured.
And Martell calls self-deception the founder's greatest liability. Most founders believe they spend 80% of their time on high-value, revenue-generating strategy. In reality, that number is often inverted. 80% is spent on administrative tasks, meeting prep, and email triage. The audit is the necessary intervention.
How rigorous does this audit process have to be effective? Because the common resistance is, I don't have time to audit my time.
It has to be absolute and non-judgmental. You have to set an alarm for every 15 minutes during your entire working week. Not just when you're on, but all the time. And when the alarm goes off, you log exactly what you're doing in that moment. No generalizing. Did you file an expense report? Did you spend 15 minutes reviewing a complex legal contract? Did you get lost scrolling Twitter? You have to capture the raw data, eliminating all guesswork.
That feels like a massive time commitment itself. For the entrepreneur who says they can't do the audit, what is Martell's advice?
His guidance is that the 2 weeks required for the audit are the most high-leverage activity you will perform all year. You are diagnosing the disease before you prescribe the cure. And for practical execution, a simple spreadsheet works. Or you can use a dedicated time-tracking app that categorizes tasks. That can dramatically simplify the process. The tool doesn't matter. The ruthless consistency does.
Okay, so once that raw, undeniable data is captured, we move to the analysis phase.
The analysis has 2 critical components that map directly back to the DRIP matrix. First, you assign each task a dollar value. This runs from $1 for basic administrative work up to $4 or $5 plus for highly specialized strategic work that truly requires your unique expertise. Second, you color code based on energy. Red for tasks that drain your mental energy, and green for those that energize and fulfill you.
And the resulting bucket of red, low-dollar tasks becomes the immediate target.
Precisely. That large, heavy bucket of activities, the tasks that cost little but steal your energy, those are your immediate hiring targets. And the vital tactical lesson Martell imparts here is this. You must hire to stop doing things first. Get rid of the drain, protect your energy, and then, and only then, hire for capacity.
Because if you don't...
If you hire for capacity before eliminating the drain, you simply add management burden to an already chaotic schedule. You're just compounding your complexity without increasing your freedom.
That focus on hiring for freedom, rather than just for capacity, is the core premise of Principle 7, the replacement ladder. This is the exact systematic sequence of hires that Martell says you have to follow to transition from operator to strategic visionary. Skip a rung, and you create organizational chaos.
The sequencing is so vital because each step frees up the founder for the next higher leverage activity. If you hire a salesperson, which is rung 4, before you have a marketing system, rung 3, you've hired someone who can't sell because they have no qualified leads. It just doesn't work.
So rung 1, the most fundamental, is the administrative assistant. And as we discussed, this role has to have complete, not partial, ownership.
Correct. The AA must have complete ownership and be the gatekeeper of the founder's time and communications. This means full control of 2 domains, the inbox and the calendar. They manage the flow, book the appointments, filter the non-essential contacts, and ensure the founder has protected blocks of focus time. This is the most transformative leverage you can introduce early on because it immediately removes you from that constant, distracting flow of communication triage.
Okay, so once the founder's time is protected and managed, where does the focus shift?
Rung 2 is the delivery hire. This person handles all the systematic operational aspects of serving the customer onboarding, ongoing support, project management, and making sure client success logistics are handled flawlessly. This frees the founder from getting bogged down in fulfillment and logistics, and it allows them to concentrate solely on strategic sales and system improvement.
Rung 3 then addresses the crucial need for consistent, predictable demand.
That's the marketing hire. This individual assumes ownership of all lead generation, traffic sources, content creation, social media presence, and advertising campaigns. Their explicit, measurable goal is generating qualified leads constantly, running 24 hours a day. This removes the founder from that cycle of daily lead hunting and content churning.
Followed logically by rung 4, the dedicated salesperson.
Right, who takes responsibility for all new business conversations, qualifying leads, follow-up, and closing deals. Martell considers this the point where the founder achieves genuine operational freedom. With administration, delivery, marketing, and sales systems all running autonomously, the business can function and grow without the founder's daily intervention. This allows for extended time off or deep strategic work on those level 3 assets.
And the final rung, the leader partner. Martell suggests this is fundamentally different from just hiring a COO. How so?
A traditional COO is often hired purely for operational efficiency, managing today's systems better. The flow, or leader partner, is a strategic, high-level hire who partners with the founder on vision and innovation. This person owns the management of execution and team outcomes while also focusing on scaling the systems for tomorrow. They aren't just managing the present, they are helping shape the future vision alongside the founder. They ensure the business is constantly iterating and innovating.
And getting that sequence right is everything.
Everything. And this systematic process is laid out in the 1-hour guide by Anil Nathu to provide entrepreneurs with a clear, stress-free roadmap for scaling their operations and ensuring they hire the right person at the right time.
But the fear of losing that founder's unique essence, the magic, is the #1 emotional block to fully utilizing that replacement ladder. So Principle 8, the 10-80-10 rule, is Martell's solution. It's a framework to keep quality high while preventing the founder from becoming the bottleneck.
It's such a powerful delegation mechanism. It's used by content creators, manufacturers, technology leaders globally because it optimizes for the founder's highest and best use, which is vision and final approval.
So let's start with that critical first 10%.
This is ideation and vision setting. The founder provides the clear, high-level framework. They define the goal, the resources available, the constraints, the strategic direction, and most importantly, they clearly define what success looks like for this specific project. They set the tone and the boundaries, ensuring the team knows the why behind the what.
And then the massive non-founder involved 80%.
This is execution and ownership. The team takes over completely. They conduct the research, manage the timelines, perform the creative work, source materials, and execute the project with full autonomy. And crucially, the founder steps away entirely during this phase. This 80% is where competence is developed. If the founder interrupts or micromanages here, the entire system fails, and the team never develops the muscle to self-correct or problem-solve on their own.
The founder only returns for the final 10%.
Right, which is integration and sign-off. The project comes back in its near-final state for the founder's unique strategic refinement, approval, and necessary tweaks to ensure alignment with the overarching vision and brand fingerprint. This structure ensures the founder's essence is maintained through the initial vision and the final quality check, while their precious time is entirely freed from the time-consuming grind of the middle 80%.
Scaling beyond the founder's personal capacity demands robust systems. And that brings us to Principle 9, which is all about building playbooks. We all know the famous industrial examples, like McDonald's having a system so detailed a high school student can produce a predictable product, but how do we apply that rigor to knowledge work, which is often messy and subjective?
Martell gives us the 4 C's of playbooks, which adapts that industrial rigor for modern dynamic work. The first C is the camcorder. This is the raw material capture. The founder records themselves performing a delegatable task, processing a new client, setting up a marketing campaign, drafting a specific type of contract, while talking through their entire mental process, every decision point, every consideration.
So the recording transitions the founder from being the author of the work to being the editor of the documentation.
Exactly. The founder captures the expertise once, then someone else on the team uses that raw video to execute the task, and later to refine the process documentation. The second C is course. This is the detailed, written, and structured documentation. It contains every step: screenshot, decision tree, contingency, and consideration. It serves as the primary reference guide that enables a team member to work with minimal supervision. It's the training manual.
The third C is about establishing a predictable rhythm for the business.
That's cadence. It's about establishing recurring rhythms for different types of work to ensure predictability and consistency. This includes things like daily huddles, weekly report reviews, monthly financial deep dives, and quarterly strategy sessions. Cadence ensures that critical work is proactively scheduled and executed, preventing items from falling through the cracks or only being addressed in a reactive state of emergency.
And the final C, the necessary safety mechanism that's used in high-stakes environments.
The checklist. This isn't the full, detailed course. It's a high-level quality control mechanism, much like a pilot's pre-flight checklist. It just ensures that all critical steps for a specific action like sending a client proposal or launching a new product are covered right before deployment, without requiring the employee to reread the entire training documentation every single time. It's the final guardrail for quality.
With the delegation systems built, we now have to invert the way we approach scheduling. This is Principle 10, your perfect week. The typical entrepreneur reacts to commitments, a request for a meeting, a sudden emergency. Martell demands that we stop reacting and start designing.
This is really the practical application of level 3 thinking. You stop letting external commitments and other people's priorities dictate your schedule. The process begins with scheduling your life first. And the first step is blocking out your big rocks first. These are the non-negotiable activities that align with your deepest values and your largest income drivers. Health practices, deep focus time for producing unique value, family commitments, Key revenue-generating meetings,
These blocks are fixed.
they are fixed, and everything else has to fit around them.
Once those non-negotiable blocks are placed, we optimize the remaining time for peak efficiency.
Through batching, grouping similar tasks together rather than scattering them throughout the week. 3 hours of focused creative work requires cognitive immersion, and that is exponentially more productive than 6 scattered 1-hour blocks where you waste massive amounts of mental energy on context switching. You batch administrative tasks, you batch meetings, you batch creation work.
And linking this back to the DRP matrix, Martell emphasizes scheduling based on your natural energy flow.
Energy optimization. This is so critical. You schedule your most cognitively demanding work strategy, complex problem-solving, creative thinking during your peak energy hours, which for most people is the morning. You reserve meetings, team interactions, email triage, and lower concentration tasks for when your energy naturally dips, like that afternoon slump. This ensures that when you need to be brilliant, you are naturally wired for it.
And the concept of net time really captures the essence of this high-leverage design, combining two valuable activities so they don't compete for space.
It's intelligent time maximization. Martell talks about the founder's hike, combining exercise with mentoring a key team member or discussing high-level strategy, or combining necessary travel with a team member for essential, focused knowledge transfer.
Right. Or even in your personal life.
Absolutely. Another powerful example is using a meal prep service, which is a personal buyback, to reclaim hours you then dedicate entirely to family time. You are maximizing the value generated from every single available minute.
The most advanced systems are useless if the founder's leadership style remains anchored in level 1 or level 2 thinking. Principle 11 shifts our focus to transformational leadership. It's recognizing that the growth from a $1 million company to a $10 million company requires the founder to evolve from a doer into a coach.
The distinction is absolutely vital for scalability. The transactional leader is perpetually stuck in the weeds. They tell people what to do, they check the work, and then they tell them the very next task. This creates a perpetual doom loop where the founder remains the bottleneck, spending their entire day simply managing activity and ensuring compliance. The team is just entirely dependent on the founder's daily guidance.
The transformational leader, by contrast, focuses entirely on desired outcomes and capacity development.
Exactly. They establish the result they want, they set up clear measurement systems so the team can track their own progress toward that result, and they coach the team member when they get stuck, rather than just giving them the answer. Their goal is to develop the team's ability to think critically, to solve problems autonomously, and to own outcomes. They're creating high-leverage thinkers rather than compliant followers.
And Martell operationalizes this essential coaching approach with the full coachee framework. Let's make sure we detail all 4 steps here, because the framework is often misunderstood.
Right. The full framework is how high-level leaders transfer their knowledge without creating dependency. So C is for identifying the core issue, the single specific leverage point that, if improved, would create the largest multiplier effect on that team member's performance. You just focus on one thing at a time. O is for sharing a personal story, a relevant, vulnerable anecdote about how the founder learned this lesson themselves. This builds context, connection, and psychological safety. A is for asking the team member to commit to a specific behavioral change based on the insight gained. And the final C, which is often missed, is commitment and accountability. You define the next steps and set a clear date and time for a follow-up to ensure the change is implemented and sustained. This structure ensures development is tied to specific, measurable action.
That type of high-level development requires immense trust and psychological safety. Principle 12, the clear principle, provides a structured conversation framework designed to clean up the emotional debris and address concerns before unspoken frustrations poison the culture.
Psychological safety is the hidden driver of innovation and high performance. If people are afraid to be honest, the organization just stops innovating. The clear conversation is Martell's system for inviting truth-telling, especially when there's an unresolved conflict or resentment. So C is for INR. Create a warm, private environment for the conversation, genuinely appreciating their willingness to be honest.
And the next step, L, is the most counterintuitive for most founders, but it's the key to unlocking honesty.
L is for lead, by asking for their feedback on you first. You frame it as essential to your growth as a leader. You intentionally lower their defenses by focusing on your own potential flaws, shifting the energy away from whatever issue you want to discuss with them. It's permission to speak freely. E is for emphasize, by restating what you heard them say, ensuring mutual understanding, and confirming you listened without judgment.
And then you give them the chance to reveal the real core issue.
Right. A is for ask if there's any. Ask if there's anything more, giving them explicit permission to surface the real, often difficult issues that they were reluctant to bring up initially. And R is reject or accept. Based on what they shared, you either provide perspective on why a decision must remain firm, so rejecting the complaint but validating the feeling, or you commit to a specific, measurable change on your part, accepting the needed improvement.
So leaders who use this systematically just prevent that buildup of unspoken frustration.
That's it. They stop the poison before it spreads through the culture.
The systems and leadership principles create the space. Principle 13 ensures we fill that space with massive, purposeful direction. This is the 3 phases of a 10x vision. Martell reminds us constantly that buying back time is merely the means. Building something exponentially bigger and better is the end.
The creation of an empire has to start with phase 1, dreaming without limits. Most people suffer from small dreams because they can't visualize what's truly possible. And small dreams are hard to execute because they often lack the necessary resources or excitement. Martell says big dreams are actually easier to execute than small ones because they provide massive clarity.
How does that clarity work in a practical sense?
Well, if you are aiming for a 10x outcome, every single daily decision is filtered through that lens. Is this opportunity a distraction, or does it move me closer to the 10x dream? If you are only aiming for 2x growth, every opportunity looks tempting, and that leads to a dilution of focus. The big dream acts as an immediate filtering mechanism.
Phase 2 focuses on ensuring the vision is comprehensive, not just business-focused.
Right. Creating a clear vision. Holistic. Your vision cannot be purely business metrics. It must cover multiple, intertwined dimensions. Defining the kind of team and culture you want, the type of business you enjoy running, the desired lifestyle you want to live, the level of family involvement you crave, and the community impact you wish to have. If the vision for your business success contradicts your vision for your family life, the whole system is guaranteed to fail under pressure.
And phase 3 is arguably the most intriguing, living in the energy of that vision.
This is Martell's version of visualization as nervous system training. When you regularly and deeply imagine and feel the experiences of your ideal future, the peace, the autonomy, the impact, you literally start developing the emotional frequency of that future self.
So this isn't magical thinking.
No, it's practical alignment. By training your mind to live in that energy, you start noticing opportunities, people, and situations that align with that energy. You're actively attracting the necessary resources to manifest the vision because you're simply ready to see and seize them.
That massive, expansive vision needs a structured annual roadmap. Principle 14 outlines the preloaded year strategy. It's designed to counteract that chronic mistake entrepreneurs make, severely overestimating what they can accomplish in 12 months while tragically underestimating what they can achieve in a decade.
The preloaded year ensures you focus on leverage from day one by prioritizing what matters most. It starts with that powerful metaphor of rocks, pebbles, and sand. You have to schedule the big rocks first, the critical priorities that move the 10x vision forward. Things like strategic partnerships, high-value content creation, key managerial hiring. Then the pebbles, which are important, necessary projects, they fit around the rocks. Then the sand, small, easily deferred tasks fills the remaining space. And finally, water emails, administrative triage tops it off. If you start with sand and water, there is little to no room left for the vital rocks that generate growth.
So what specifically qualifies as a rock for a founder implementing this system?
A rock is anything that moves you toward level 3 of trading. It could be designing the final 10% playbook for a major function. It could be the strategic planning sessions with your leader partner. It could be a full day dedicated to creative visioning. Sand, conversely, is anything that takes you away from level 3. Answering routine customer service emails, filing expenses, or handling basic scheduling. The preloaded year demands you block time for the rocks first.
And this plan has to account for the things that prevent total burnout as well.
Absolutely. That's maintenance. These are the non-negotiable preventative medicine practices that protect your most valuable assets, yourself and your family. This means scheduling weekly spouse check-ins, quarterly personal retreats, dedicated health practices like exercise and nutrition, and family rituals. Martell insists these are not luxuries. They are essential investments in the sustainability of the entrepreneur and the business engine. If the engine collapses, the business collapses.
And this comprehensive nature of planning is exactly why the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu stresses deep structural change over just quick fixes.
Right. Then comes the discipline of commitment to the plan you've designed. You establish the year plan, share it with your accountability partners or your team, and you commit to it regardless of motivation fluctuations. This is where strategic discipline overcomes the emotional whims of the moment. And finally, you establish a review and adjust cycle. At the end of the year, you revisit what you committed to, identify what worked, what lit you up, and crucially, you cut the meh tasks, the things that didn't generate energy or value, to create necessary space for new, high-leverage experiments in the next cycle.
This cyclical review, which we champion here at the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, is just essential for continuous improvement.
It's how you get better every year.
All these principles, when you fully integrate them, lead to the ultimate goal, which is Principle 15, the buyback lifestyle. This is applying the leverage and delegation principles directly to your personal life for genuine holistic freedom.
The ultimate goal is so simple: spending time only on the people you love or creating unique value for the world. Martell outlines 4 ascending levels of personal outsourcing. Level 1 is the most accessible: cleaning and errands. This is outsourcing house cleaning, laundry, basic yard work, and simple errands. It's recognizing that your $400 hour time is financially and energetically unsuited for these $25 an hour tasks. It's the easiest way to buy back several hours a week.
Okay, level 2 addresses the critical hours lost to basic provisioning and sustenance.
Right. Meals and supplies. Using meal prep services, grocery delivery, systematic supply replenishment, and standardized ordering systems. These tasks, when you add them up, steal countless hours every single week. Reclaiming this time often provides immediate hours for deep relaxation or presence with family. It offers an immediate, high emotional return on investment.
Level 3 requires the identity shift we discussed, particularly for parents who feel the pressure to do everything themselves.
Family support and logistics. This means hiring help for complex logistical support. Someone to handle school pickup and drop-off, transportation to activities, complex calendar management for the family, or coordinating extracurriculars. This does not mean outsourcing parenting. It means outsourcing the logistics of parenting, which allows the founder to be fully present and energized during actual family time rather than stressed about transportation and scheduling.
And the highest, most leveraged level of personal buyback.
Level 4, projects and ownership. This is hiring the equivalent of the CEO of your personal life, often a high-level personal assistant or a dedicated logistics manager. This person handles complex personal projects, coordinates real estate management, manages vehicle maintenance, handles all detailed travel planning, and manages complex financial oversight that isn't related to the business. It's the ultimate expression of autonomy, ensuring that all the founder's time is spent creating unique value or connecting with those they cherish.
We've covered 15 principles that fundamentally rewire the entrepreneurial experience from the ground up, from valuation all the way to vision. For you, the learner, who wants to implement these powerful insights immediately, we've synthesized a 3-step action plan designed for rapid leverage.
Step 1. Calculate your value, weeks 1 to 2. This step is all about honest valuation and diagnosis. You have to commit to performing the time and energy audit, that's Principle 6, for 2 full, non-consecutive weeks. Set that 15-minute alarm, log the activity, and be ruthless in your self-assessment. Immediately follow this by calculating your buyback rate, Principle 3, and remember that essential 4x multiplier. Your tangible output from these 2 weeks has to be identifying the 3 to 5 red low dollar tasks you're going to stop doing within the next 48 hours.
Step 2. Eliminate the assassins and build the ladder, weeks 3 to 8. This focuses on behavioral correction and foundational leverage. First, identify which of the 5 time assassins, Principle 4, the staller, the saver, the supervisor, is your most frequent saboteur, and actively block that specific behavior this week. Simultaneously, shift your focus to the replacement ladder. Draft a detailed job description focusing on absolute ownership for your very first freedom hire. The administrative assistant, rung 1 of the ladder, Principle 7, and don't just list tasks, list the outcomes you want them to own.
And step 3, systemize and visualize ongoing. This addresses long-term structural change and direction. Choose one recurring, high-frequency, delegatable task and build the full 4Cs playbook for it. That's Principle 9. Start with the camcorder method. This forces you to think systematically about delegation. Finally, dedicate a non-negotiable block of time, a big rock, to drafting your 10x holistic vision from Principle 13 that covers business, family, and lifestyle. This ensures all your subsequent delegation and scheduling decisions align with your desired future state, not just your current chaos. This holistic roadmap is available in depth at the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
That's the full scope of the shift. Martell's core message is so clear. Buy back. Your time is about restructuring your relationship with time to create space for what matters most to you. Every single delegation, whether it's hiring an admin assistant or a housekeeper, is an act of faith in your own capacity to generate more value doing something else.
And the true transformation comes when you genuinely internalize the belief that your time is valuable and that you fundamentally deserve autonomy. The discomfort of letting go of paying someone to handle tasks you could technically do yourself, that's the required investment for the freedom you seek. The tension of letting go is not failure, it is the price of the leverage. This comprehensive look at freedom and systems from the One-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu shows that building an empire requires strategic retreat and systemization, not constant, aimless hustling.
Thank you for joining us today. Visit the One Hour Guide website for more business insights. Let's learn and grow together.